you have to kind of come up with the idea of what you're working towards, right?
Correct.
Is dissertation a word?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, you got it.
And so how different is the final paper from your initial idea, and what sparked that initial idea?
Oh, okay. So my initial idea was different from what it turned out to be 7 years later. The initial idea was drawing from my master's degree. And in my master's degree, I looked at the marketing and branding strategies of Drake, and I looked at how he represented different identities in different music videos. I thought that that's part of the reason he rose to fame was because he was able to appeal to many different demographics. One music video, he's representing his Jewish roots, another very American, another very Canadian, middle class, high class. He was representing all these different lifestyles that people could connect to. But then when I went to do my PhD, I knew I wanted to be a professor, so I wanted to keep going down the academic route, and I wanted to explore the marketing and branding strategies of 3 popular artists. I didn't know who they were at the time. Originally, one of them was Post Malone, another one was somebody else, and that's when I started looking at the marketing and branding strategies of artists in hip-hop and R&B music. But what I found was there was a huge lacking of studies of Canadian hip-hop and R&B artists. So then I started to peel away and look at, the lack of coverage of these artists and wanted to then focus on specifically Canadian hip-hop and R&B music and look at the marketing and branding strategies of Justin Bieber, Drake, and Jessie Reyez, because all 3 of them try to participate in the R&B space, but all represent very different identities, different Canadian identities. And when I went to look at what they were doing differently from artists before them, found them that history of Canadian R&B lacked representation. So I then had to look at the history of Canadian R&B before I looked at what contemporary artists were doing. So it almost became 2 dissertations in one.
Coming out of high school and going into university, like at what point do you identify which road you want to go down? And did you know at that point, like, I want to be a professor, I want to go as far as I can?
Well, my parents never kind of told me what parameters to go down. I have a Indian background, like lawyer, doctor. They're just very traditional things that parents might push you towards doing, especially being immigrant parents. They've sacrificed a lot for us to be here. They might encourage you to do that. Mine luckily did not, but they said, whatever you do, go the farthest you can with that. So I knew I wanted to go down the professor route. They didn't care what subject, they didn't care where it was in academia, but they said go the farthest you can. So for me, going into my undergrad, I had no idea what subject it really was going to be, but I knew that I was really interested in different forms of communication. So my undergraduate degree was a joint honors program in fine arts and English, and I did a digital media specialization. So sculpted, painted, wrote a bunch, and then looked at the digital media side. And I didn't know where it was going to go, but in my digital media specialization, it was one project. I was examining different forms of communication in one class, and I came across Nicki Minaj's Pound the Alarm music video. And it was the first time I saw my Trinidadian roots represented in a mainstream popular culture music video. And that to me made me feel a sense of belonging. It really inspired me and made me super proud to be Trini, and in a Canadian space where I didn't really get to celebrate those roots or see it really reflected in mainstream media. So I analyzed that music video in one essay, and that's what led me to explore the representation of identity in different music videos. So that's what led to my master's, me looking at Drake's representation of identity, and then so on and so forth in my PhD.